Hey guys, that's here. If you're studying Japanese every day, but if you still feel like your Japanese is not becoming useful, this video is for you. A lot of learners work hard, and I understand it. So usually, the problem is not effort. The real problem is often this. You study in a wrong order, in a wrong way. If you really want to speak Japanese, you need the right cycle. Input, output, feedback, and repeat. First, you build a foundation. Then you use it. Then you get feedback. And then you repeat the process again and again. The repeat part is very important. So today I want to talk about some common mistakes Japanese learners make and what you should instead. All right, let's go. 1. Don't jump into speaking too early. Speaking is important. Of course it is. But many beginners try to speak before they have enough input. For example, some learners immediately start online Japanese conversation with native speakers. Or they start using an app and just repeat phrases again and again without really understanding what they mean. This is usually not the best way to start. Why? Because if you do not have the foundation yet, speaking practice becomes frustrating. You freeze, you cannot make sentences, you do not know many words you need. And in the end, it feels like speaking practice is not working. It's like going into a forest without a map. You might feel motivated, you might feel excited, but if you don't know where you're going, you will probably just get lost. Language learning is very similar. If you jump into speaking without building your base first, you can easily feel confused and lost, right? At the beginning, you should focus mostly on input. I mean things like hiragana, katakana, basic sentence structure, basic grammar, and common vocabulary. You need a base first. Then output becomes much more useful. So I'm not saying don't speak. I'm saying don't rush into speaking before building your foundation. But if you're not really sure, or if you have a textbook but do not really know how to study with it effectively, that usually means you need a clear path. If you're looking for something to start with the foundation, you can always check out my courses in my community from the links in the description. So check that out. Now next one, don't learn difficult words too early. This is another very common mistake. Many learners think, if I learn more words, I will speak better. But that is not always true. Actually, when I was learning English, I made these mistakes too. I thought I needed to memorize more and more vocabulary. I thought more words meant better speaking. But even if I knew more words, I still could not speak smoothly. Why? Because speaking is not just about knowing words. It is about being able to use it quickly. And this is where many Japanese learners struggle too. In a simple daily conversation, try to use words that are too advanced, too formal, or too specific for their level. Then they stop. They think too much, and their Japanese becomes slower and less natural. So remember this, fluency is not difficult vocabulary. Fluency is using simple, useful vocabulary quickly. Your goal is not know many words. Your goal is to make your Japanese smooth. Your goal is to make useful words come out in about 0.5 seconds. This is what makes your Japanese smooth. Japanese has many words with similar meanings. You do not need to learn all of them at the beginning. Your goal is daily conversation. It is much better to master simple, high-frequency words that you can actually use. Some advanced words may appear in books, essays, or formal writing, but they're not kind of words most learners need early on for everyday conversation. For example, instead of saying 不平不満があります, which means something like I have complaint or dissatisfaction, you could often just say 文句があります, which means I have complaints. I want to complain. And instead of saying 焦燥感を感じています, which means something like I feel a sense of impatience or anxiety. You could often just say 焦っています, which simply means I'm panicking, I'm feeling rushed, I'm getting stressed. Or you could also say ストレスを感じています, right? It could say something difficult words in a simple way with a similar meaning, right? This is what you need. So the point is not to sound smart. The point is to say something natural, simple, and usable. This is much more useful than trying to collect more and more words that you cannot actually use. So focus on one vocabulary deck or book and make it perfect. 3. Don't translate everything into English. This one is very important too. A lot of learners are always doing this in their head. Japanese, English, and meaning. And if you always do that, your Japanese stays slow. Why? Because every sentence has to go through English first. But Japanese and English do not work in the same way. The structure is different. The feeling is different. The way ideas are organized is different. So if you want Japanese to become more natural in your mind, you need to start connecting Japanese directly to an images, feelings, and situations. This is why image is so important. Vocabulary should not just be an English translation. Grammar should not just be an English explanation. Japanese should start becoming a direct image in your mind. When you hear a word, I want you to feel that situation. When you learn grammar, I want you to connect it to a clear image or pattern. This is how Japanese becomes faster and more natural. Next one. Don't study without a clear goal. Another big mistake is studying without knowing exactly what you want to do. A lot of learners just think, I want to get better at Japanese. But that is too vague. Better for what? Daily conversation? Travel? Watching anime? Passing JLPT? Talking with Japanese friends? These goals are different, and your study should change depending on your goal. If your goal is daily conversation, you should focus on vocabulary and patterns that help you speak in daily life. If your goal is reading difficult books, then a goal is different too. So before you're choosing your materials, ask yourself, what exactly do I want in Japanese? Because your goal decides what vocabulary you should learn, what grammar you should focus on, what kind of listening you should do, and what kind of output practice you need. Random study usually gives you random result. Clear goals give direction. Okay, the last thing is here. Don't just listen passively. This is also something many learners do. They listen to Japanese in the background and think, okay, I studied today. But passive listening is often too weak by itself. Of course, hearing Japanese is not a bad thing. It can still help you get used to the sound. But if you really want your listening and speaking to improve, you need more than just background exposure, right? You need active practice. Very often, when you cannot clearly hear the sound, it is because you still cannot produce that sound well yourself. So instead of just listening, try this. Listen, imitate, repeat. Listen carefully, copy the sound. Repeat it again and again. This is much stronger because now you're training your ears and your mouth together. And this is one of the best ways to make Japanese more useful. So don't just immerse passively, start listening to active practice, right?
はい、皆さんこんにちは。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。ゆうの日本語ポッドキャストのお時間です。皆さん元気にしていますでしょうか？今日は皆さんにどうやったら会話が上手になるのか、会話の中でうまく話せるようになるのかっていうアドバイス、そしてトレーニング方法を紹介したいと思います。Right. Make it slow and try to imitate it. Once you get used to it, you can make it faster. This is the way you can do it. Alright, if your Japanese is still not improving, it does not always mean you're lazy. I know you're working hard, and it does not mean you're bad at languages. Sometimes, it just means you're studying in a wrong order, in a wrong way. So, do not try to do everything at once. Build your foundation, master simple and useful Japanese, and stop relying too much on translation. Set a clear goal and practice actively. This is how Japanese becomes natural. Remember the circle here. Input, output, feedback, and repeat. Right? Improvement does not come from touching many random things once. It comes from repeating the right things until they become automatic. That was true for me when I was learning English. And I think it is true for Japanese learners too. And if you're not sure what to study next, or if you have a textbook but do not know how to use it effectively, check my courses in my comment different links below. I made them to give you a clear path, so you do not have to figure everything out alone. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.